Welcome to another episode of RedditWolf. Without further delay, let's jump into today's story.
Wife admitted to having an ongoing affair with her boss, who's married with 2 kids, after only being married to me for 4 months. Posted by The Fool 415. Hi all. I really appreciate this community and found it very helpful throughout this process, so I'd like to share a truncated version of my story. My ex-wife and I have been together for about 6 years before we got married last June of 2021. Getting married during a pandemic wasn't easy, but we had a wonderful wedding and it was one of the happiest days of my life. Fast forward a few months, and my wife became a completely different person. She opted to go to the office regularly while I continued to work from home. We both worked from home throughout the pandemic. She worked for a big firm, so the longer hours seemed to be par for the course. But she no longer wanted to spend quality time with me on the weekends, spending a lot of her time with her horse, and began to downplay my achievements, claiming I was no longer a go-getter, even though I was doing very well at work. People say that the first year of marriage can be hard, so I started taking my wife on regular date nights to reinvigorate our relationship. But she remained withdrawn and judgmental, which is a big blow to my self-esteem. I racked my brain thinking what I might have done to make her act and feel this way, but I couldn't come up with anything plausible, so I started to lose sleep thinking I was possibly losing my wife to someone else. These were the worst months of my life because I couldn't believe you could lose the person you married so shortly after tying the knot. So I convinced myself it was the pressure of her job that was causing her to act this way, and I opted to suppress the negative thoughts to avoid exacerbating the issue we were having. She was actually gaslighting me the whole time, and I just didn't know it. D-Day. I organized a romantic weekend by the beach, despite my suspicions, in order to try and revive what we had prior to our marriage. I thought this would renew our bond, but she became more brazen with her disdain. I told her I loved her on our way to dinner. She didn't reciprocate, and later that evening, she had me take a not safe for work photo of her in a bubble bath. And when I mentioned that it was a bit too scandalous for social media, she responded, "That's not what I'm using it for." We have been intimate throughout our marriage, but she refused to be intimate with me on this trip. That's when I finally confronted her on my suspicions and demanded she be honest with me. She denied everything, for a while, but I convinced her I had proof. I didn't, and she finally confessed. She admitted to sleeping with her boss on numerous occasions for months, and that he was pressuring her to leave me. I went through a panic attack, which I'd never experienced before, and after finally calming down, I realized what a fool she was for falling for his lies. I told her I was going to inform his wife, and she responded, "She'll find out, but you won't be the one to tell her." That's when I knew my ex-wife had convinced herself she was going to run away with her boss. It was sick and a little evil, and I realized that my ex-wife was never who I married. The real her was a manipulative and vile stranger. She changed my flight that night and sent me to my parents' house and told me she would mail me some boxes of my clothes. I contacted the boss's wife via social media as soon as I got to the airport, and that's when all hell broke loose. Long story short, the boss never planned on leaving his family, and in order to try and save his marriage, he distanced himself from my ex-wife as quickly as possible. Apparently, HR had gotten involved, and my ex-wife quickly gained a reputation around her office. She cried and pleaded with me to take her back, but I told her she'd made the decision, and I'm just completing her plan. Aftermath. Success is the best revenge. Life has been good now that the dust has settled. I live near some of my closest friends, met an amazing woman, and found a great job in CA. I'm learning to love myself again, and I've realized that my ex-wife's opinion of me during our marriage is not a reflection of who I am or my inherent value. I'm truly happier without her, and while I occasionally feel disheartened by what transpired, I feel blessed that this truth came to light before we had kids. And now for some comments. The Folix Jinxed said, "Wow, I can't believe she had you take a picture of her in the bathtub for her boss. These cheaters are seriously twisted in the head. Congrats on exiting that situation. What a twisted individual. Hilarious how it backfired on her with her boss pressuring her to leave, OP. Meanwhile, he had no intention on leaving his wife for her. At least the AP was taking out the trash for OP. Dragonmaster97 says, I find it incredulous that the twisted mindscape that cheaters create. They need to somehow invent justification for their choice to cheat, and voila, an entire fantasy landscape springs into existence full of running away. W2EF is this even? As if they are both just going to quit their jobs and potentially walk away from any children involved to move away and live happily ever after? And just being with each other in happiness and love without the outside world ever intruding on them? And just as inexplicably, they want to come home once the bubble pops, and they are left with the consequences of their actions. Sadly and surprisingly, many BS are willing to take back their betrayer because they still feel in love with the person, even though that person demonstrated unequivocally that they don't have the same feelings for you. What is it about our society that people feel entitled to lie and cheat and just be awful partners, but somehow still feel entitled to be in a relationship with the person they are betraying in such an awful manner? And OP responded to this one and said, I told my ex-wife that if she felt any disdain for me to excuse her actions, so be it. But what did the boss's wife and kids ever do to her? She even had me meet the boss and his wife over lunch. It was an extremely selfish and stupid act on her part. To be honest, I may have walked on it if it was a one-time thing and she was truly remorseful, but to go back to him on numerous occasions and plot to leave me made the situation a very painful no-brainer. And when someone asked, your ex met her AP with his wife, was this after you blew up their affair? Is your ex-wife's AP still married? Did he and your ex-wife get fired from their jobs? OP responds with, this was before I blew up their affair. I'm not sure, but I think AP stayed married for the kids. HR separated them from working together, but my ex-wife left the firm shortly thereafter to avoid further humiliation. HR just wanted to protect the company from liability. They don't care about anything else. Shretlock the Wanderer said, damn, dude, that is a badass ending. Good on you. You don't need to ever deal with that manipulative herpes dispenser again. And then further in the comments, OP says, it is not easy and the pain still lingers, but you have to focus on yourself and improving yourself in any way you can. Exercising, eating better, adventuring, spending more time with friends and family. It all helped me cope with the trauma. I even worked hard to refine my resume and reached out to connections to find new job opportunities. It's not that I disliked my previous job, but I wanted a complete reset. I focused a lot of my energy at my new job to cement myself within the organization and distract myself from the pain. I still have troubling sleeping some nights, but as I got healthier and happier, I exuded a confidence that attracted the people around me. The best thing you can do is show growth and maturation despite these embarrassing circumstances. Show others that your ex does not define you, and those around you will start to admire you for a quality they never knew you had. Everything takes time, and I promise you it was not easy for me in the early stages. But use this opportunity to find yourself again and evolve. And now for story number 2. I feel like my journey has come full circle, posted by GlassIndividual9203. I remember the pain I felt when I found out my ex-wife was cheating on me. We were together almost 7 years, 3 married, and we were talking about starting a family. I felt like someone had stabbed me, and then I learned details of the affair. It went on for several months, starting as an emotional affair and moved on to a physical affair. She brought him to our home. Our bed. Didn't use protection. I feel like she thought so little of me to disrespect me the way she did. I loved her with all my heart, but I could not reconcile. The pain at first was overwhelming, but I slowly realized it was not my fault. I'm not the one that put us here. I take ownership of my fault, but I did not deserve what she had done. By the time the divorce was final, I was over her. We even briefly talked as we finalized everything. I was cold to her, but I no longer had that hate for her. I had no feelings towards her at all. She was a stranger. 6 years has passed, and I was in the grocery store with my current wife. I go to the next aisle and see my ex-wife. Our eyes locked for a moment. She had a surprised smile on her face. Then my wife came round the corner, grabbed my arm, and continued telling me that whatever funny story she was saying. The look on my ex-wife's face went from smile to sadness in her eyes. She put her head down and walked to the next lane. I whispered in my wife's ear that was my ex-wife there. God bless her. She asked me if I wanted to say anything to her. I kissed my wife on the forehead and said, "No, baby," and we continued shopping. I thought I would have had some sort of rush seeing the pain and sorrow in her eyes, but I didn't. I feel sorry for her. Sorry that she couldn't find happiness with me or anyone else. I know the pain of those going through this now. I was very lucky I received a second chance at love and found a wonderful new partner. There can be happiness out there for you as well. I wish you all the best in your journeys, and if anyone ever needs someone to talk to, inbox me right away. Adventurous Maybe 170 said, "We need these stories more in this sub. A lot of people just lost hope when cheated by a spouse, drowning in anger and sadness until they don't recognize themselves anymore, but refuse to let the relationship go because they're afraid of something." Chompy Sack says, "Thanks for this. I'm 2 months out from D-Day and so scared that I'll never find my person. For 31 years, I thought it was my wife. I'm going to try and find out if I can live with 3-year EA, but I'm struggling with it. Can't believe how little control I have over my emotions anymore. I'm really happy to hear your nice story without any negativity or revenge." OP then just says in the comments, "I never asked about my ex once we were divorced, but we had mutual friends that occasionally would tell me what she's up to. I found out my ex was a cake eater. She didn't want her AP once I broke it off with her. She stopped seeing him with the hopes we would get back together. Over the last 6 years, I was told that she was dating this guy or someone else. I didn't ask to be informed, but people would bring it up. I think now 6 years later, she hadn't found anything with substance. I truly think she is a broken individual who will never know what happiness is. I feel sad for her, not anger anymore, but then again, it's truly not my problem." Wife of 6 years had 6-month affair with ex and destroyed our relationship. Posted by soularisen. What a crazy train ride it has been. I'm 33 and currently going through a painful divorce, and thought I should share my story to help process the numbness and loss I feel and evaluate how this train wreck occurred. Me and my wife were co-workers for a time 9 years ago. From the time we met, we were extremely attracted to each other. Sparks flew and we hit it off immediately. I dated around a good amount in my younger 20s, but there was something different with her that made me feel safe and happy. After several years of dating and living with each other, we decided to get married. I remember even at the time I proposed, it didn't feel right. We had an open relationship mostly because she wanted that lifestyle and unfortunately went along for the ride. Never marry a polyamorous relationship. Things definitely started shifting right after our marriage. With our open marriage, we set the boundary we'd only have fun with mutual friends and talk about agreements beforehand. Right before we bought our home, my wife admitted she spent a night with her ex-boyfriend and also later revealed there was no protection. I was devastated. That's where all the trust evaporated overnight. And even though I still loved her, I didn't feel respected anymore. I decided to put the house solely in my name. We bought the home when we were married, but this comes into play later in our divorce proceedings. I continued to progress in my career and being the breadwinner and thought my wife was happy. Slowly but surely, the bedroom funds started to feel like a chore and could tell she was checking out. I should also mention my wife had a very high body count of men previous to our relationship. 2 years ago, right after the pandemic started, she pulled the rug from under me and let me know she wanted to break away from me and wasn't afraid providing for herself. She hired a spiritual coach and thought she could replicate the same amount of success right away. Fast forward to today, she is still struggling to launch her coaching business. Yeah, being independent isn't so easy, right, hun? Also, doesn't feel very good when all the demasculation and treating me like garbage as I continue to financially support her. She deployed a lot of emotional manipulation to have me still provide and pay for her lifestyle. She convinced me to sleep in separate bedrooms. I did it to give her the space she said she needed. I really should have kicked her out of the house at that point. About a year ago, she reconnected with that ex-boyfriend she had the affair with. To add onto this misery, I was already feeling she decided to commit into the relationship with him, even with us still being married. Looking back, I feel completely disgusted with myself for not standing up for myself back then and continuing to allow it. She would often offer me affection and intimacy here and there to keep me ignorant of any of my dignity or respect, so I played along to earn any form of closeness with her. I was completely addicted and made her my world. The turning point was last spring after I took her to Hawaii for a week. It was my ultimate Hail Mary to win her back. We even did a couple's photo shoot professionally done and had a really great time together. However, I could tell she was still invested in her AP. Not even a day after we got back from the trip, she said she missed her AP. Again, I felt absolutely devastated that she would so easily cast away the time and energy we had just spent together. This was where I started to finally regain my dignity. I decided to play up to my image and try to walk away as unscathed as I could and divorce her. Not surprisingly, her and the boyfriend decided to move in together last summer. This is when I brought up to my wife that I wanted an uncontested divorce. She was ripe with feelings for her AP, so when I wrote up the stipulation I'd receive the full equity of the house, my bank accounts and retirement accounts, she agreed. I gave her a week to decide after another weekend of vacationing with her IP, and she signed the stipulation in front of a notary, and I filed it the same day. She ended up going out to the bar that night with her AP, getting dolled up and spending another intimate encounter with him. I guess in celebration? Yeah, I surely felt like a valued husband. 3 weeks after my wife wasn't able to get housing with her AP as originally planned. Now understanding her predicament, she filed a motion with the court to dismiss our stipulation and go to mediation. Go figure. I then lawyered up and we had several hearings with the courts. My wife never hired an attorney. I believe she thought her spiritual leadings told her she didn't need any of that. Well, turns out she lost her case and tried filing an erroneous second motion with her newly hired attorneys, and lost that too a few weeks ago. Now she's filed an objection to be heard by the judge. My lawyers are very confident the objection will also be denied and the final divorce papers can be signed. I racked up $10,000 of legal fees, but my wife also has a lot of fees too, and may even be able to ask for my fees to be paid if I win, but I will most likely to elect to pay mine anyway. Update. Also, I should add in the second motion, she filed with her attorney. She made up lies about me coercing her and lying to her. Things I told her to not hire a lawyer because it was too expensive. The commissioner saw right through that BS and denied her, and hope the judge does too. When my lawyer read through the motion with me, he said that there was no chance of reconciliation. Also, the hearing before the judge just got scheduled for April 5th. The finish line is so close now. Writing this all out, it seems almost too absurd to be true. I'm trying to survive the present the best I can, staying focused in my career and trying to enjoy playing piano and my other hobbies, to not think about this. It doesn't help that my wife gives me glimpses of wanting me back, but the past is just too painful for reconciliation. I know I can find another partner that loves me and respects me, but for the present moment, I feel paralyzed and heartbroken over this journey. Ultimately, I just want to move on with my life, and maybe I'll laugh at it and look back one day. The universe has an interesting way of unfolding. Hope that karma works as designed. Also, any suggestions on getting her out of the home? I feel like I can't kick her out legally unless we're officially divorced. She has mentioned to me many times she fears of me kicking her out. At the same time, she tells me that she has other living arrangements planned, but nothing has ever materialized. And now for the update. Hard to believe it's been 6 months already. I'm happy to report that I am officially divorced and starting to live my best life now. I still have moments of pain and loneliness hit me in waves thinking about the old versions of what we used to be, but overall I'm starting to move past it. One of the realizations that has really helped me is truly accepting she didn't care about me the way I thought she did. She had her own level of delusions, but mine was being stuck on the idea that the chemistry and bond we had earlier on in the relationship was love. How could she have loved and truly cared with the level of disrespect given to me? I gave her everything financially, let her have full control of what to do in the home, yet she resents me for doing just that? And the fact I took her on vacation to Hawaii and she tricks me into thinking we are reconnecting just to be with her ex a few days after the trip? F that. Back in April, we were supposed to have our hearing with the judge on her objection to the stipulation, and her lawyers ended up delaying it till June. At that point, I just wanted to move on, even though I had an unlosable case. So ended up settling the case and giving her alimony for just a year and 15 cash settlement. I kept the house, bank accounts, retirement accounts, which is 300K in value. It was also stipulated she had to move out of the home once the divorce finalized in June. A part of me kind of wishes she would have left with absolutely nothing for what she did. It was nice that it was completely over now, though, and ended much better than the typical cash and prizes these women usually get away with. She ended up going back to the same ex-boyfriend. No surprises. That eats away at me sometimes, but then I also just feel so disgusted by her. Her ex has no job, no capacity to earn money anytime soon, since he has a severe spinal injury. She told me a few months back that she had some spiritual readings that we weren't meant to be with each other anymore because there's just too much pain on my side. Right. I also got a new finance job in June that pushes me up to 6 figures, and she absolutely hated it when I told her that. One of the last things I told her was I hope she feels good about throwing it all away. Once the alimony dries up and she sees her route of being a spiritual life coach won't work, we'll see how happy she actually is. If she comes knocking down my door, I most certainly won't be accepting her back, ever. I'm deserving of a beautiful, loving relationship, and this is the lesson I needed to learn to appreciate what a good, nurturing relationship actually can be. Hope my story is helpful to anyone that feels like they're struggling breaking away. And in the comments, Historical Movie 625 said, "That is superb. Tell her you had readings with a real spiritual advisor, and she said that there was too much pain on her side for reconciliation, and that it's just not in the stars for you to take her back."
And we've reached the end of the episode. Thanks for listening. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.